Yeah, I want you to picture a scenario. It's a
Yeah.
situation that I think qualifies as a universal nightmare.
Oh, I'm already nervous.
You're sitting in a slightly uncomfortable chair, your palms are getting a little bit sweaty, and across the table is a hiring manager, maybe a potential business partner you really want to impress. The small talk is over. They lean forward, look you right in the eye, and ask that one question we all just dread.
Don't say it.
So, how would you describe your personality?
Ugh, the absolute worst. It's like your mind just evaporates.
Exactly. You freeze up, you
Ouch.
forget your own name, and then in the tiny panicked whisper, you just say, I think I'm nice.
Ouch. The nice trap. It is painful just hearing you say it.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's tragic because you've just committed what our source material today calls social suicide in a professional setting.
It really does feel like a wasted opportunity. But that is exactly what we're going to fix today. We are taking a deep dive into a fascinating 3-part masterclass from the Daily English Dive series hosted by Sophie and Jack. Now, usually Daily English Dive is focused on helping English learners. But this specific stack of notes, it goes way beyond just vocabulary.
That's what caught my attention, too. Sophie and Jack aren't just teaching you words to, pass a test. They're teaching behavioral psychology. They're digging into how we signal trust, how we signal intelligence.
On self-awareness.
And how we show self-awareness through very, very specific language choices.
Their mission, and ours for this deep dive, is to move you away from vague, weak words like nice, which they call the social death of a conversation, and towards high-value vocabulary. They describe this vocabulary as being a user manual for your brain.
I love that metaphor, a user manual. Because when you describe your personality, you're not just chatting. You are teaching the other person how to treat you. You're setting the rules for engagement.
Now, just a quick heads up before we jump in. Because our source material from the Daily English Dive is rooted in language learning, we're going to be really precise with our terms today. We'll keep the pace steady, and we'll definitely unpack the grammar where it matters.
Sure.
But we're mostly going to focus on the psychology behind why certain words work and others just fail.
It's the perfect approach. Understanding the why helps the words actually stick.
So let's start with that problem with nice. The source material uses a really sticky analogy here. They say, describing yourself as nice is like handing someone a blurry photograph. You can see there's a human shape there, but you can't see any details. You don't know who it is.
It's a total lack of data. And from a psychological perspective, nice is a wasted slot. The sources talk about personality labels as cognitive shortcuts. You have to remember the human brain is lazy.
Right.
It loves shortcuts. When a hiring manager meets you, their brain is subconsciously asking 3 questions. Is this person safe? Are they competent? And will they make my life easier?
And nice doesn't answer any of those questions at all.
No, it doesn't. Nice just means you aren't mean. That's like the bare minimum. If you give them a clear, high-value label, you are essentially doing the thinking for them. You're handing them that user manual we talked about.
So let's look at the first upgrade. The sources recommend swapping the blurry word nice for a high-definition word. Reliable. Now, I have to be honest, on the surface, reliable sounds a little boring.
It's not flashy, no, but in the professional world, it is gold. The source material brings up a business psychology concept here called the trust tax.
The trust tax, okay, that sounds like something I don't want to pay. Break that down for me.
It's the hidden cost of working with someone unpredictable. If I hire you and I'm not sure you're going to deliver, I have to check on you. I have to send follow-up emails. I have to micromanage. All of that mental energy is a tax on my time.
That makes so much sense. Unreliability creates work for other people.
Precisely. But if you are reliable, the tax is 0. I give you the task and I never think about it again until it's done. That is incredibly valuable currency in a workplace. You are saving your boss mental energy.
The source actually gave a great real-life example of this to make it concrete. Jack, one of the hosts, talked about his sister helping him move house. The agreement was to meet at 8 a.m. She didn't just show up at 8. She was there at 7:55 a.m. with coffee.
See, that's the difference. Nice is saying you'll help. Reliable is being there 5 minutes early with caffeine. One is a sentiment, the other is a behavior.
Let's move to the second high-value adjective. Patient. Now, I have to admit, when I see patient on a resume, I usually think of someone just, waiting in line at the post office without complaining. Is that really a power skill?
In the 21st century, absolutely. Yeah. Think about the modern office, Slack notifications pinging every 2 seconds, software crashing, clients changing their minds.
Oh, yeah, cool chaos.
Total chaos. The source argues patience is a superpower because it correlates with emotional regulation.
It brings up the famous marshmallow test, right?
It does. The classic Stanford experiment. You give a kid a marshmallow and say, if you wait 15 minutes without eating this, I'll give you 2. The kids who could wait, who had that patience, tended to have better life outcomes years later.
So in an interview, patient doesn't mean I like waiting. It means I have high delayed gratification.
Correct. It signals that you don't quit when things get frustrating. You can handle the delay between doing the hard work and seeing the result. For, any long-term project, that trait is non-negotiable.
Okay, I'm sold on patient. Next up is a word that I think gets misused constantly. Creative.
This is a big one. The source highlights a major misconception here. We tend to think creative means you can paint a beautiful portrait or write a symphony.
Right.
So if you're an accountant or a logistics manager, you might feel like you aren't allowed to use this word.
Well, yeah, you generally don't want a creative accountant when it comes to the numbers.
Definitely not. You want the numbers to be very accurate. But the source defines creativity here as divergent thinking. It's not about art. It's about resourcefulness.
Divergent thinking. So looking for multiple solutions to a single problem.
Exactly. The source gave a funny but really effective example. Fixing a broken computer with a paperclip and a piece of gum. It's not pretty, it's not art, but it solves the problem.
That's actually a really liberating definition. It makes creative accessible to engineers, customer service reps, anyone who solves problems.
Yeah, if you tell an employer you're creative in this sense, you're telling them, I can solve problems with limited resources, and that is always in demand no matter what the job title is.
Now, the final word in this section is what the source calls an elite level word, proactive.
This is a darling of the management world. Proactive essentially means anticipatory behavior.
Anticipatory behavior. That sounds a bit technical.
It just means living in the future. The source uses this brilliant analogy to explain it, the umbrella.
I like this one. It's very visual.
So a reactive person, which is honestly most people, waits for the rain to start falling. They get wet, they get annoyed, and then they go looking for an umbrella.
Right.
A proactive person checks the weather report the night before and brings the umbrella with them in the morning.
They solve the problem before it even happened.
Exactly. If you can claim to be the umbrella person, you're telling that hiring manager that you aren't just waiting for orders. You are looking ahead to prevent disasters. You're taking ownership.
Okay, so we have this toolkit of high-value words: reliable, patient, creative, and proactive. But here's the catch, and the source brings this up. If I walk into an interview and just list these words, hi, I'm reliable, creative, and proactive, I sound
like a robot. Or worse, you sound arrogant. It's the trust me, I'm great approach. It rarely works because talk is cheap.
So how do we fix that? The source suggests something called the evidence method.
This is the golden rule of communication. Show, don't just tell. And there's some fascinating brain science backing this up. The source cites a statistic that the brain remembers stories 22 times more effectively than dry facts.
22 times. That's a huge difference.
It's massive. It's called neural coupling. When I tell you a story, your brain lights up as if you are experiencing it yourself. When I give you a list of adjectives, your brain just processes data. It's boring. It's easy to forget.
So the formula isn't just adjective. It's adjective plus story anchor.
Right. Instead of saying, I am reliable, which goes in one ear and out the other, you say, I am reliable. For example, in my last job, I managed the weekly newsletter for 2 years and never missed a single deadline.
That's hard to argue with. You're not bragging, you're just reporting the news.
Exactly. You're providing data. Evidence changes the dynamic from believe me to look at what I did. It builds immediate credibility.
Now, before we move on, we have to pause for a grammar trap mentioned in the source material. This is specifically for listeners who might be non-native speakers, but honestly, even native speakers trip up on this when they get nervous.
The I am a friendly trap.
Yes. It sounds small, but it grates on the ear, doesn't it?
It does. In English, you cannot put the article a before an adjective if there is no noun following it. So you can say, I am friendly.
Or, I am a friendly person.
Right. But I am a friendly is just a grammatical dead end.
It's one of those small polish things. Fixing it makes you sound instantly more professional and fluent.
Absolutely. It shows you have command of the details.
So we've got our words and we've got our evidence. But part 2 of this deep dive gets into something really interesting. Context. Because I'm different at a party than I am in a library. Does that mean I'm fake?
Not at all. The source introduces the concept of the chameleon effect, or situational personality. Humans are designed to adapt to their environment. It's a survival skill. You have a professional self and a social self, and that's actually really healthy.
And the source highlights some specific vocabulary to describe this shift, specifically initially and warm-up.
These are great tools for managing expectations. Initially just means at the beginning, and warm up is a phrasal verb meaning to become friendlier or more comfortable over time.
Like an engine on a cold day.
Exactly. So if you're a bit shy, you don't have to say, I'm shy, which sounds kind of negative or weak. You can say, initially, I can be a bit reserved, but I warm up quickly once I get to know the team.
That sounds so much better. It shows self-awareness rather than insecurity. And speaking of self-awareness, the source also busts a huge myth about introverts and extroverts.
The binary myth. Yeah, we are obsessed with putting people in boxes. You're either the loud party animal or the quiet wallflower. But the reality, as the source points out, is that most of us are ambiverts.
Ambiverts. It sounds like an amphibian, but for personality.
It does sound biological, doesn't it? An ambivert is someone who falls in the middle. They might enjoy socializing, they can do the party, they can lead the meeting, but they need solitude to recharge their battery afterwards.
I think that describes about 80% of the people I know. We can turn it on, but we need to turn it off.
Probably. And using that term in an interview is so powerful. Instead of boxing yourself in, you say, I'm an ambivert. It suggests you have the social skills for a client meeting, but also the focus to sit alone and do deep work. It's the best of both worlds.
Okay, let's talk about sentence structure. We don't want to just say, I am this, I am that over and over again. The source material provided 3 professional patterns to mix things up. The first one is the humble habit.
That's the phrase. I tend to be, for example, I tend to be quite organized.
Why is that better than just saying, I am organized?
Because I am is absolute. It suggests you're organized 100% of the time, which, let's be honest, nobody is. I tend to be implies a natural habit. It sounds more humble, but also more accurate.
I like that. It hedges just enough to be believable. The second pattern is social proof. This involves the phrase, people often tell me that.
This one is brilliant because it's basically an external review. You aren't saying you think you're a good listener. You're reporting that others think you are. People often tell me that I'm a calming presence in a crisis.
It's hard to argue with third-party feedback. It feels more objective. And the third pattern.
Action first. I'm the type of person who...
This goes right back to the evidence method, doesn't it?
It does. Actions are expensive. Adjectives are cheap. If you say, I'm the type of person who arrives 10 minutes early, you don't even need to use the word punctual. The action speaks for itself.
Those are really actionable patterns. But what about when things go wrong? The source talks about describing your personality under stress. This feels like a huge trap in an interview.
It is the stress test. And yes, you have to be careful. You do not want to admit to being grumpy or aggressive or, weepy when the pressure is on.
I tend to throw my keyboard. Probably not a good hiring signal.
Definitely not. The source suggests focusing on your cognitive response, not your emotional one. A great word they offer is methodical.
Methodical, meaning you follow a method.
Step by step. Logic over emotion. You can say, under pressure, I tend to be methodical. It implies that when chaos hits, you get structured. You focus on the solution, not the panic.
That is a power move. You're acknowledging the stress, but framing your reaction as a positive asset.
Exactly. You become the anchor in the storm.
Okay, we have to talk about the scariest part of any personality description. The final boss, as the source calls it. The question, what is your greatest weakness?
Everyone hates this question. It feels like a trick.
I usually just want to say, I care too much, or I work too hard.
Which everyone knows is a fake answer. It's the humble brag, and interviewers see right through it. But here's the interesting psychology. The source introduces the pratfall effect.
The pratfall effect? What's that?
Research shows that people who are generally competent but make small mistakes or admit to small flaws are actually more likable and trustworthy than people who appear perfect.
So being perfect is actually a disadvantage.
It creates distance. People can't relate to perfection. It makes them suspicious. Admitting a weakness shows you're human. But, and this is the critical part, you cannot just dump a flaw on the table and leave it there. You have to frame it with a growth mindset.
Right. A weakness isn't a permanent wall. It's just a construction zone. And the source gives us a specific formula for this, the safe weakness formula.
It goes like this. I can be a bit weakness sometimes, but T, I am working on it by action.
That but is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
It is. It pivots from the problem to the solution. Let's look at an example from the source. Perfectionism. Instead of just saying, I'm a perfectionist, which just sounds annoying.
You say, I can be a bit of a perfectionist, but I'm working on it by using a timer to limit how long I spend on small details.
See, that actually makes you sound productive. You've identified the issue and implemented a system to fix it.
The source lists a few safe weaknesses. They're generally okay to use. Public speaking is a classic one.
Right. I get nervous speaking in groups, so I'm joining a club to practice. Or delegation is another good one. I tend to try to do everything myself, but I'm learning to trust my team more.
And my personal favorite, overthinking. I can be an overthinker, but I use a 5-minute reset rule to clear my head and make a decision.
Exactly. You're turning a vulnerability into a demonstration of your problem-solving skills. You're showing them you are self-correcting.
Now, before we wrap up, we should sprinkle in some flavor. The source material from the Daily English Dive included an idiom garden. These are great for making your English sound natural, aren't they?
They add color. If you only use functional words, you sound like a textbook. Idioms make you sound like a native speaker with personality.
First up, the social butterfly.
This is someone who just flits from person to person. They love the mix. She's a real social butterfly. It's a positive term for networking.
And the opposite, the wallflower.
The person who stays on the sidelines, literally leaning against the wall. But remember, the source notes that wallflowers can bloom. It's not an insult, just a description of initial shyness.
Then there's the best compliment you can give someone, down to earth.
This means humble, practical, easy to talk to, no ego. In a world of LinkedIn influencers and self-promotion, being down to earth is high praise.
And finally, an old soul.
Usually a young person who has wise, mature interests. Maybe they prefer jazz and reading history to TikTok trends. It suggests depth.
I think I was definitely an old soul as a kid. I just wanted to drink tea and read books while everyone else played tag.
Nothing wrong with that. It probably made you very reliable.
Now we have one final grammar trap to disarm. And this one is actually quite funny, but dangerous if you get it wrong.
The difference between patient, the adjective, and a patient, the noun.
Right. If you say, I am a patient, what are you saying?
You're saying you are currently receiving medical treatment in a hospital.
Not exactly the vibe you want in a job interview. Hire me, I'm sick.
Patient is the adjective.
Yeah.
A patient is the noun. So you must say, I am patient.
It's similar to that classic Ed versus egg trap. I am bored versus I am boring.
Huge difference. I am bored describes my feeling. I am boring describes my personality. If you tell an interviewer, I am very boring, you're telling them you will put the office to sleep.
Please don't do that.
Stick to the adjectives.
All right, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. Let's do a rapid-fire recap of the key terms we've gathered from this deep dive.
Let's run through the toolkit. We replaced the weak word nice with reliable, avoiding the trust tax, proactive, being the umbrella person,
and creative, using divergent thinking.
We also talked about ambiverts and the chameleon effect, the ability to adapt your style based on the situation without being fake.
We learned the methodical approach to stress, and most importantly, the evidence method. Never give an adjective without a story anchor.
And we tackled the final boss with the safe weakness formula. Admit the flaw, but immediately show the work you're doing to fix it.
It really is a complete shift in how to present yourself. It's not about bragging, it's about clarity.
It's about making it easy for the other person to see your value.
So here's our final thought for you, the listener. What is your story? The source material emphasizes that describing your personality isn't just about picking words from a dictionary, it's about sharing who you really are.
And if I can add a challenge, I'd ask you to identify your one safe weakness. What is it? And more importantly, what is the specific action you are taking to fix it? Write it down. Solidify that growth mindset.
That is a great challenge. Be down to earth, be proactive, and tell your story with evidence. That's all for today's deep dive into describing your personality. Thanks for listening.
Goodbye, everyone.